Hi everybody, we are Mike and Brenda Baker. Have you ever found yourself and your spouse in a huge disagreement on how the kids were or weren't disciplined? Well, in this episode, we are going to teach you exactly how to handle inconsistent discipline with grace or accountability. So with that, we're going to get started.
Okay, so, we get a lot of this, actually. There's a lot of parents that are like, well, what do we do when we have two differing styles or one has a style and the other doesn't, which is still two differing styles, okay? So it's very important to remember that, our first point here is going to be when discipline appears inconsistent, all right? What that means is that I've told you multiple times now, we both told you, family is family. Doesn't matter if it's newly started family or blended family, same rules apply as far as family go. But blended family has more baggage. What we're dealing with right now is we're opening some of that baggage, okay? So you didn't start as a natural family. You didn't start as these are all our kids. You have to gravitate towards these are all our kids, whether they're all your kids or not. That is your goal, is to picture the family as exactly that family. But because you came in separately with separate kids, now you've got to unpack all of this discipline stuff. And so what often happens is one accuses the other of not disciplining at all. All right. And actually, I would say more often than not, it's not even that they don't agree with their discipline style. Usually it's, well, my husband doesn't discipline his kids at all, or my wife doesn't discipline her kids at all, whereas she's hard on our kid. So really it is just two different styles that are not recognizable to one another.
Well, and I would say that the first thing that you need to do is take all of the emotion out of it. Because I feel like when we have issues, there's a lot of emotion. Usually on my side, not as much usually on Mike's, but emotion really clouds the main problem, right? So if you can break that problem down, you can take the emotion out. Here's why I feel, here's what I feel, and this is why. And then you find the core issue. That is going to be your saving grace. It's been our saving grace. Would you say most of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, because really, we would typically, especially in our younger years, we would typically fight about the same things over and over and over, but they showed up in different ways. If we would have known back then to get to the core of the issue and find it as fast as possible, we would have been able to get through those things much quicker. Would you agree?
Yeah. See, part of what's happening here is when you find that you have inconsistent parenting styles, for one, I'm going to touch on our number 2 point here while I do it. You've got to give each other grace. What you're seeing here is you're seeing a conversation that you guys never had. So here you met, you fell in love, you got married, and you never talked about what are we going to do with these kids? What are our lines in the sand going to be? Now there will be some different rules for two sets of kids if you both have kids, or one set or one kid. Just depends on your particular layout, and that will have a lot to do probably with the ex, and we'll just kind of leave it there. Okay, sometimes you got to put up with certain things from an ex in order to continue to see your kids, but that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
All right. So there'll be different things to unpackage with different kids. That's my only point. But you got to give each other some grace, and you got to accept the fact that we should have talked about this long before now. Because now what you're doing is you're getting your tail feathers all ruffled, and really you haven't even have you told him that you don't appreciate that really bothers you? Have you told her that, hey, I don't appreciate that really bothers me? Well, yelling when you're finally mad is not telling them. Okay, that's just lashing out. What you need to do, and this is very, very important, when you start to see what appears to be a lack of the way you would do it, okay, which usually translates, well, they're just not disciplining at all. No, they are disciplining. They're just not doing it the way you would do it.
Yeah.
keep in mind, is that what you agreed on? And if you can't say that's what we agreed on, then accept the fact you never talked about it and talk about it. Now, be very careful. The reason we say give grace is because now you're dealing with two different parenting styles, right? Now that scab's been torn off. Now there's a big open sore there. So when you come in, you're looking to put a Band-Aid on it. You're not looking to open it further. Mm-hmm. All right. So approach it from I would say, granting grace. Okay, they don't do it how I do it. I wonder why that is. Ask them. So the kids did this. They said this to me or whatever. Is that okay with you? Because for me, it seems like disrespect, but I want to understand why you didn't say anything or why you did this or why you did that. So, I mean, really, in your grace, you're opening up the conversation. You're putting a little bit of yourself aside so that there's room for them. And in turn, they will probably put a little bit of themselves aside to make room for you. Is that going to happen every time? No, because approach is everything. Words matter.
Yeah, and I would say that probably one of the biggest issues that people have when the honeymoon phase has phased out and you're into the real life portion, is that people really judge each other's parenting. Well, and they judge each other's kids to a certain degree. Now, Mike and I didn't struggle with this because, we did, but later on, okay? We didn't struggle with this because our boys were 4, 3, and 2 when we got married, okay? And so we were pretty much on the same page as to what needed to happen, what should happen, whatever.
But we talked about it before we got married.
Yes, in detail, we did talk about these things because we could see how that would be an issue.
Yeah, and it helped mitigate issues. That's my only point.
However,
go ahead.
We did have issues when he came back from Iraq both times. The first time was far worse because he was gone 18 months. We only got to see him twice in that 18-month period. Mm-hmm. Once was for about a week, I think, and the other time was 2 weeks. So 3 weeks total. Over a year and a half, we got to see him, okay? Now, he was in a difficult position, in a difficult place where he was, and so we also didn't get to talk to him most of that year and a half. So I would say that it was really, really tough when he came back, and I was like, oh, I've got this. I already know what to do with all of this. And Mike was like, but you're not in charge. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not. Okay. And I had to learn how to let him take over again. Now that was a really difficult situation because I had been doing it by myself, single parent, with a lot of judgment and issues and from a lot of different sources, not just his ex-wife. And so that was really, really hard. And I wanted to do things my way because I am an only child. I'd rather just have everything be my way. But I would also say that that is a woman thing. That's not just an only child thing. Because, girlfriend, please listen to me. A lot of you are super picky and you want everything your way. Where does your husband come into this? Aren't you both married? Why is it just up to you as to what happens? And I would submit to you, if you are a Christian or a God-fearing person, you are going against the scripture when you are trying to take over or when you won't give the reins over to your kids, to your husband.
See, mitigation. Let's talk about mitigation. That's what we're really dealing with here. So when I went to Iraq the first time, now I came back very angry, all right? Now let me preface here because a lot of people have an idea of veterans, and I want to make sure this is clear. I wasn't a door kicker, which means that I was not a scout. I was not infantry. I wasn't out actively kicking doors and running down bad guys. I was support, okay, which meant that I was mechanicking, I was carpentering, I was plumbing, I was doing all these things for support, but there are still stresses there too, and I came back a pretty angry guy. But mitigation...
Can I make a caveat, please, before you continue, though? He wasn't angry toward us.
No.
He was
generally
depressed and angry about many of the things that happened while he was gone from the house. and also what happened over there, but not toward us.
Right.
Anyways.
But it didn't change the fact that I was angry, and it changed my whole
personality.
Yeah. So, but before I left, I knew that Brenda could handle all these things, but she was very unconfident in that area.
Scary.
So we literally took like a week before I left and went down the list of where everything in the house was. Here's where the main water shutoff is. Here's where the main gas shutoff is. Here's what to do in this case. Here's who you're going to call for this. Here's who you're going to call. And I laid all of that out. I think I wrote it all down too.
You did. You had a whole binder.
I had a whole binder written because I wanted success for her. Now, that doesn't mean that she didn't have difficulties that weren't covered in that binder.
Yeah, like a stalker.
However, imagine what the difficulties would have looked like if she hadn't had the binder.
Yep.
Okay? If she hadn't had all those, if I hadn't set her up for success, if we hadn't tried to mitigate the situation beforehand. Another example of mitigation is before we got married, I had one thing I told her I would never do. And it's non-negotiable to this day, non-negotiable. When I was growing up, my mother made me garden and take care of house plants. Made me weed, made me. And I hated it. Loved plants, hated the work. I wanted nothing to do with it. And I told her before we even got married, I said, honey, I love you and I will lay down my life for you. But if you get houseplants, you can make the house look like a jungle. If you leave for more than a day, they will all die. I will not take care of them. No desire. So you can know that when you bring a plant in, you are 110% responsible for that plant. I won't touch it. I won't look at it. Nothing. I'm not going to do it. And 29 years later,
we don't have plants.
We don't have plants, but that's not because, we've had plants.
Yeah.
But she's taking care of them. She respected that because I laid out that boundary early on. Here's my point. We have given each other grace and we've spent more time mitigating than we have arguing, I believe, because we took the time to talk about these things beforehand, which is going to bring us to our last point here, which is there ever a time to call your spouse out? And if so, when and how?
Mm. Yeah, so I really think that this is a situation where it really depends, first of all, on emotions. How high are the emotions? I would never, ever, we would never encourage you to have a heated discussion and then call your spouse out. That's going to end badly.
That's an argument.
It's not going to build a bridge. It's actually going to build a wall.
Excuse me.
Build a wall. And so we do not want you to build a wall with your spouse, because walls are too hard to climb over. Because typically what we've seen, correct me if you feel I'm wrong, what we've seen not only in the comments, but also emails and things that we've gotten, and working with people is, wait, now I forgot what I was saying. It's good.
Those things happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, continuing on. She'll grab it when it comes back.
Sorry.
Okay, is there ever a time to call your spouse out? Absolutely. If you are being exceptionally disrespectful to your spouse, you've earned the right to be called out. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, jerk, don't talk to me like that. That means you just very bluntly state, whether it's the male or the female, I don't appreciate that. And if you would like to discuss it, I'm fine with discussing it, but I don't appreciate that. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly that. It's going to look different for every couple. But the point is, you need to come into it and deal with it sooner than later. All right? Don't wait. Don't think that when something happens that you're going to have a discussion later and you're going to work it out. No. Nope. You don't let that day go down without discussing that topic and getting that handled, because it will fester and fester and fester. And then we're going to get emails like we get now. Mm-hmm. My wife or my husband's kids talk exceptionally disrespectful to me. I've tried talking to them about it, and they blow me off. Let me tell you how to translate that. I thought I communicated myself. I did not communicate myself in the way I thought I did, and they blew me off because they did not hear what you were saying, because it wasn't a call out. It was you saying something and assuming they should get the point. Never assume. Always ask, do you understand what I mean when I say this? And when they say yes, and in this case, don't be afraid to ask them, then can you please explain it to me? Because I just need to know. I don't need you to agree. I just need you to understand. Because that's the first step. You know, your spouse there's a good chance your spouse is willing to change that, even if they don't agree with it, so long as they understand how it makes you feel. But if you're not willing to have the conversation and then make sure the communication is clear, then you're just never going to get to that point.
Right. And what I was going to say before is overall what we see in the comments and people emailing us and things like that is that they haven't communicated that, but they thought they did. And it's real similar to what you just said. But they also didn't take the time to be sure that their spouse kind of understood from their perspective why they feel the way they do. Maybe you grew up in a home where you were disrespected a lot. Maybe that's a trigger for you because of a previous marriage. Maybe you're somebody who it really triggers you when children are disrespectful to adults. This is kind of one of those situations. I was a little triggered this weekend. We hosted 6 boys in our house for a youth event that was happening at our church. And not one of those boys said thank you or please the entire time they were here. Now, they were nice boys, but what in the world? What kind of parenting is that? You mothers need to step it up, because please and thank you is a courtesy. That is a minimum. Now, yes, this is my opinion. Yes, I'm a Gen X, but something's trying to get me. But it's so annoying to host children that are rude like that. Now, they weren't rude boys. They were really sweet, but they came downstairs and turned on our TV without even asking. That's stupid. Nobody's kids should be doing that. So if you don't like the way things are going in our society right now here in America, you need to be the first one to change that cycle by parenting your kids, not just letting them do whatever they see fit at the moment. Yeah. That is not parenting. That's stupid. And it's only going to cause more problems.
So really, when it comes to, is there ever a time to call your spouse out? It's not necessarily calling your spouse out. It's calling your spouse out it's calling your spouse higher, but calling them out to conversation. Okay. You got to stop just getting bent about it, and you got to sit down and talk about it, and you got to have the hard discussions, and you got to say the hard things. You guys agreed. See, this is what I've told you before. I'm going to tell you again right now. You're standing at the altar, you're doing all the I do's, everybody's weepy and giggly, and it's good, everything's good. And you say, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. Now that thought flashes through your mind, but you don't think for 2 seconds what for better or worse looks like. Okay? Guess what? It's coming. It comes for all of us. Yeah. All right? You don't get to just say when you're happy that you're going to make this work. You have to say it when you're in the sickness. You've got to say it in the hardship. You've got to say it regardless. We are going to work this out. We agreed to get married. We want this to be our last marriage. Not we get divorced and never get married again marriage, but we want this to last. So we are going to do the work. All right? And if you're not willing to do the work, you're part of the problem.
Well, and I would really say that resolve is something that a lot of people need in their marriages.
And grit.
Yeah, it takes determination to stay married sometimes. We've been through some really rough stuff, and we've had a lot of betrayals happen over the years, not between each other, but with other people. And it's really hard to move forward after that. But you can. You don't have to take it out on your spouse. Whatever's going on around you, become that team. Learn how to be that team. And that is something that we're going to teach you. As you watch more and more of these videos, we're going to teach you that, because that is such a key element to being in your blended family in a positive and, well-rounded way. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I'm done.
Okay. So with that, we are going to let you go. We're so grateful that you were here. Hey, just understand that if Mike brought up something that you personally have emailed us about, don't worry, you're not the only one. There's been many comments, so he wasn't calling you yourself out. It's just something that we see.
It was a generalization of all the emails that have come through.
Yeah. It's just something that we see a lot. And so with that, we're so grateful that you were here. If you have any questions, comments, anything, leave those down below, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.